The realization of being a social disposable. Alexei returns to Roulettenberg after 2 weeks away, expecting a warm greeting. Instead, the general treats him with a freezing, haughty detachment that signals a shift in power. He realizes that the family has somehow acquired new funds, rendering his services as a tutor less essential. This moment of rejection fuels Alexei's growing resentment and his need to assert his own worth against those who view him as a mere servant. Testing the boundaries of subservience. The general summons Alexei and attempts to lecture him on his gambling habits in a pompous, disconnected tone. Alexei refuses to look away, meeting the general's gaze with a fixed, disrespectful stare that forces the older man into confusion. By accepting a small pittance of his own money back, Alexei feels the weight of his financial chains and the burning desire to break them through the very vice the general condemns. The sting of being the invisible observer. While walking with the children, Alexei witnesses the family riding in magnificent carriages, flanked by the Frenchman and the Englishman. He stands on the sidelines, calculating the cost of their horses and the status of their companions like Mademoiselle Blanche. Seeing Paulina in the midst of this hollow splendor makes him feel like an uninvited guest in her world, sharpening his internal conflict between love and class hatred. The choice to be a boor rather than a ghost. At a formal luncheon, Alexei is ignored by the Count and the General. Irritated by Paulina's indifference, he decides to shatter the polite atmosphere. He loudly interrupts the conversation to tell a provocative, aggressive story about insulting a church official in Paris. This deliberate act of social suicide is his way of proving he exists, choosing to be hated for his rudeness rather than ignored for his lower status. The admission of a soul's total submission. Paulina leads Alexei to a secluded bench in the park to discuss her desperate financial straits. Alexei confronts her about the Marquis's interest in her inheritance, but the conversation turns dark and personal. He confesses that he would jump off a cliff at her word, while simultaneously admitting he often wants to strangle her. He realizes he is no longer a man to her, but a slave who finds a sick pleasure in his own powerlessness. Waiting for death to solve life's problems. Paulina reveals that her grandmother is dying in St. Petersburg and the entire family is on tiptoe waiting for the inheritance. Alexei sees the grotesque reality of their situation. They are all living on credit and hope, tied to a dying woman's pulse. This revelation deepens his cynicism as he understands that his own fate is now entangled with the greed and desperation of a family on the brink of ruin. The transition from man to instrument. In a sudden shift of tone, Paulina hands Alexei 700 florins and commands him to go to the casino to win for her. She uses him as a tool for her own survival, knowing his addiction to the game. Alexei is torn between his hatred for the task and his desire to be necessary to her. He accepts the money, realizing that his identity is now being consumed by the spinning wheel of the roulette table. Confronting the squalor of one's own desires. Alexei enters the gaming rooms for the first time and is struck by the moral meanness of the crowd. He watches the serious, humble faces of the gamblers and feels a sick qualm at the heart. He attempts to maintain a gentlemanly distance, but the internal pressure to change his fortune is overwhelming. He realizes that he cannot leave this town until a radical, final change occurs in his life, for better or worse. The moment fate takes the lead. With a trembling hand, Alexei places his first bet on behalf of Paulina. He loses initially, feeling a wave of nausea, but then begins a streak of winning on the red. As the croupier pays him out, the rush of the game begins to drown out his social anxieties and his resentment. In this final scene, he is no longer a tutor or a servant. He has become the gambler, fully surrendered to the chaotic whim of chance.